Hey, Ed here. Welcome to another lesson from my mentor, Drop. This one I learned back in the Army, classic two by two trading. If you've ever seen anyone present to you, I'm sure you have. You're watching this, you've seen all of it. Someone from Bain or McKinsey, they're going to pull out BCG, they're going to pull out two by two. It is a great tool. The Army made it even better by adding some weights to it. And so all the credit here from my mentors in the Army teaching me this stuff, but it's really the decision-making matrix. And I'm sure you've applied this in various ways, but today I'm going to apply it in a way that addresses one of the top 5 reasons people call me. And I've already dropped a couple episodes on this topic. I should just create a succinct, hey, here's the top 5. But early on in Lessons from My Mentor, I talked about the main one when someone needs they just got fired, they got let go, something happened, their transition, and what do I do? So I help them. So go back to that episode and you'll find out about that. Another one is how do I maximize my influence? I created that one recently, not sure when it's going to drop, or maybe it just dropped actually. So that one had dropped. So I would say around April 15th, if you look around April 15, April 16, that one should have dropped. So how do I maximize my influence? Because that really helps with both of these topics, when it comes to, hey, what are the things I need to do because I just lost my job? But in this case, we're actually talking about a situation where you have multiple job offers, but that's how the wave usually goes, is like they lost a job, now they're out there doing all the best practices, becoming visible, becoming a person of influence, drawing the appropriate attention, and then nailing, preparing for and nailing the interview. And now they have multiple job offers. So this literally just happened to a good friend of mine. I've been helping in this exact process for the last few months. He has 3 offers on the table, and he's asking, how do I deal with that? And it's easy, thanks to the Army. And so I'm going to give you a quick example, making it up on the fly, so hopefully it all makes sense. So back in the day in our living room, and yeah, it was a kitchen at one point, and then the living room, we had, it's almost embarrassing to admit it, but we had an easel. One time a dry erase easel, and another time, like a giant sticky note type easel. And because we always had family meetings, because our kids were younger, and we tried to include them in everything, in decision making, and we include them in this decision as well. And that's like, what job do I take? I got these great offers. I don't know which one to take, and it can be super confusing. And when you don't take a quantitative view of it, it's all emotion. Now, emotion is good, and you need to have some emotion in that decision. But if it's all emotion, you might make the wrong decision. So this is a great way of handling it. Again, I would do this on a big easel. Don't have that luxury in my office here. So I did it on a piece of paper. So I at least got it going for you. It's very simple because none of this is new for you. But the very first thing I believe is the mission and vision. Of course, I have a lessons from my mentor about this as well, strategic planning. You should have a one-pager on your life, on your job as a husband or wife or whatever your role is, your job as a father, your finances, your marriage, your family. So I ended up probably with 6 one-pagers, but they're beautiful. They're so easy once you do it the first time. So at the top, what is your mission and what's your vision? Because this is what drives all of this decision making. You've got to have alignment in your life. Too often we do these willy-nilly things, and there's complete misalignment. That's why people are depressed and unhappy and all kinds of maladies. One reason is because there's no alignment. So this is one way of ensuring alignment. So what's your mission vision? I pulled, actually one of these was a real vision for me. And then I took them, I didn't go back into the archives, which are right over there. That's why I look over there to find a real one, but I wanted to make the point. All right, mission. So maybe it's my leadership reflect godly values. That's why I'm creative. That's why I'm in the workplace. But here's the important part for this assignment. Okay, what's the vision? So vision, become a CIO. So at one point, I was like, I want to become a CIO. So that was my vision, is like, become a CIO. After I became a CIO, I was like, how do I become a good CIO? Because I was like, not a good CIO. So I had a whole plan. That was my first formal mentoring with Tom Zenti, which I think I've talked about before as well. I actually had a plan on how to move from just average CIO to a great CIO. I don't know that I achieved the great part of it, but I did a lot of things that got me a little bit closer. Okay, so back to this. So on the top, it's really easy. You put your job A, B, C. normally you're probably just gonna have two, or your two may be stick with your current job if that's the situation that can do, or take that new job that you got recruited for. So that's probably the most common thing, right? It's gonna be like, do I stay? Should I stay or should I go? But sometimes you might get fired, laid off, or whatever. And so you've got multiple new jobs. So in this case, we could pretend, for the sake of example, job A is your current job, and job B and C, those are potential jobs. So you've put your hat out there just to test the waters, and lo and behold, a lot of people are interested in you, which is good. And you should always do that, by the way. Okay, so that's on the top. Coming down this angle is your criteria. What are the criteria that will lead to the fulfillment of the vision and lead for you to have a happy, satisfying role, whatever that might be? So this is going to differ. This is where there's going to be a lot of variation, and you could probably come up with 20. I recommend keeping it to 10 or less. But this is where the family gets involved too, depending on the age of your kids, but definitely your spouse, significant other. You've got to decide what the criteria are. And then, super important, because it'll dramatically change the scores, is you have to weight them. And that's something different. A lot of classical 2x2s, you won't see weighting. On this one, we're weighting them. And so in my fictitious example, we're weighting them on a number of 1 to 5, because you're going to multiply these numbers. So the higher the number, the more likely it is you want to take that job. So the multiplier, therefore, the more important that particular criteria, the higher. Now, they all can't be 5s. They all can't be 1s. There's got to be some variation. All right. So some classical ones, you'll think of better ones. I just literally did this in 30 seconds. Hey, new boss. That's one people leave out. So that's why I put it in. You don't want to take a job and work for an ass. And a lot of times, because there's going to be more pay, or maybe you got to work at some world-class place, you're willing to look past that. Don't. Oh, that'll ruin you. So I always put in, hey, what's my new boss going to be like? Location may not be as big of an issue anymore, because we're allowed in many cases to live wherever. But as you're more senior executive, you're going to have to live in that community. Even if you have the option not to, you should. Okay. Mission, vision, alignment, pay and benefits, the challenge of the job. And that can go either direction, because you may be in a situation where your job, hey, you've got things nice and running well, and you're doing really good stuff. And for some people, that may be exactly what you want. For others, it'd be like boring. And it's the same with the challenge. Like, do you want to take over a train wreck? I still get calls today, and I do listen to them, because for a number of reasons. And sometimes I think, because I know a little bit, about the backstory of the situation. It's never as lovely as it's made out to be when you're being recruited. Of course, nothing is. But it's like, man, I would never go there. I don't care, 2 million, 3 million, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to live my life doing something that I'm not behind. Okay. So the last ones are the growth, things like that. Again, all should be lined up to achieve your vision, or most of them should be. All right. Now, the last one I call the Holy Spirit. You may call it gut, instinct, something. I always have this wild card, because, and I've had this situation happen before. We did this analysis. Like, I was happy in my job, but I had 2 other offers. And when we did the analysis, it was like, job 2, we should leave for job 2. But there's something in our gut, called the Holy Spirit from a Christian point of view. We're like, even though the numbers line up to leave, I don't think we're supposed to leave at this time. And both my wife and I had that same sort of peace. And that's what that is. So when it comes to weighting, that is the highest weight, and nothing else should have that same weight, in my opinion. So that's a 5, and again, I'm not going to argue with you what each of these should be weighted. It'll be different for everyone, depending on the age of your kids. What are the schools like? Stuff like that. So, but whatever it is, you definitely need to weight things, because not everything has equal weight. Then it's pretty simple. And you have to go, don't overanalyze. Don't do analysis paralysis. Otherwise, you'll be like healthcare tech. All is tech available. We're so far behind. So, sorry, I had to throw that in there. So it's simple, right? So 1, 2, 3, higher number, the better. So when it comes to the new boss, is it your current job, job A, job B, or job C? So let's just say, my boss is amazing. These other 2 knuckleheads, they'll never be the same, but they'll be okay. So I'm gonna give a 3 and I am gonna rank order this, meaning you can't have a tie. Okay, you can have a tie, but don't the only thing the only reason I caution against that, because then people start they have no differentiation. Sometimes it's good to be forced in differentiation. So actually, I'm not going to give you a tie. So no ties. So the job B, yeah, he's kind of knucklehead too. She's pretty good. So it kind of goes out like that. So location, oh yeah, we love, Dallas Fort Worth. We don't want to move here. Cleveland, I don't know. Nothing against Cleveland. It's cloudy. Um, we'll give that a one. But Rochester, it's some cool people up there. We'll say two. All right. So you do the alignment, you figure it all out. Then you do the math, right? This is easy, but I'm going to walk through it anyways. So the new boss, I weighted as a 2. So it'd be 2 times 3. That's 6. And then you've got new boss for job B was a 1. So that's 2 times 1 is 2. And for C, it was 4. 2 times 2. And so the math, I'm just going to carry it down the same. And I'll do one more that's a little bit different. We'll just mix it up a little bit. As I say, current job, mission, vision. I'm not going to they're never going to hire me as CIO. There's someone in there, they're really good, and they are never going to leave. I've had that happen before. Not with a CIO, but with a position. I knew she was never going to leave. She was a great boss. So I had to make a decision to go to, if I want to hit my vision, I had to leave. So let's just do this one backwards. Say this is a 3. Do quick math. Ooh, that's a 9. See, these things can escalate quickly with that sort of math. All right, so you come up with, hopefully these numbers are all different. 4, 4, 6. Oh, they are. Okay. Then you just add them up at the end, right? You argue a little bit with your spouse, push back and forth, maybe your kids, depending on their age, like on location, schools, stuff like that. Push back and forth. He had this little argument, and then you get down. And actually, the Holy Spirit one or the gut one should be the last line. So if I would have could do it again, I would have had the totals here, and then the Holy Spirit below that, because it's significant enough. That's 15 points. The 5 weight times a 3, that's 15 points. That's gonna swing something. So I just put it after. You can do whatever you want. But that's how you do it. So then at the end of this exercise, and this should only take you an hour, you'll have thought through all the major criteria, had some logical debate with your partner, figured out weighting. That's a part of what weighting does too, is like helps with that debate, think things through. And you'll have a non-emotional way of looking at the opportunities ahead of you. Why people do not take an hour, or let's just say this took an entire weekend. I don't care. This is your life, man. This is your career. This is your job that really impacts your life. Why not take the time to do something like that? And that's why I was very formal about it. I would then transfer it sometimes to spreadsheets. You could do the math easier on the spreadsheet, and you can mess with the numbers, stuff like that. But we would literally have these meetings as a family and go through these, because I was very fortunate early in my career where I was able to make a lot of moves that were all leading towards becoming a CIO. So it seemed like you don't want to do this too much. I probably talked about this in another video before. Every 2 to 3 years, I was like, director, and then a VP, and then like SVP, and then then a deputy, and then a CIO. So I was able to make these moves. And once I became a CIO, then I did 8 years here, 8 years there, that sort of thing. But I did move around quite a bit early on in my career, and the matrix always came in handy. I hope that was helpful. It's just a good, solid tool to use. Can't imagine not using a tool like it. And also, I'll say one last thing. It keeps the focus from becoming about money. Because a lot of times, let's face it, that's maybe the primary driver. It's like, oh, they're going to pay me, 30% more than I'm getting over there. Yeah, they are, but you're going to live in a sucky place. You're going to report to a bad boss. And yeah, other than that, so it helps bring a lot of rationality to your decision making. Hope that helps. Thanks for listening.